Investing in Stabiliser cattle is without doubt the best thing I've done in 30 years of beef farming. It's really difficult to underplay how much of a game changer it has been for us to move to stabilisers. I wish I'd done it years ago. We're carrying less cattle and we're producing more calves. All our heifers are now calving at 2 years old, as opposed to 2.5 when we had 2 herds of continentals. Our cow size as a result of that has dropped. At a guess, I would say about 150 kilos. That, the financials behind that, it just means that they're eating a lot less food. There is no downside in the performance of the animals. The stabilisers have stood toe to toe with the continentals that we've got and performed at the same level with eating less food. One of the major benefits, they are born by themselves. We've got heifers calving at 2 years old with no assistance whatsoever. That then makes them more likely to get back in calf when they go to the bull within 2 services. Barren cows was an enormous problem that we used to have with continentals, and it was because there was too many cows had calves pulled out of them. Every calf needed to get suckled, so that lack of colostrum in the first 24 hours generally had a detrimental effect on the animal. It was more susceptible to disease and pneumonia. We don't get that anymore. We have healthier animals, and there hasn't really, I can't think of a downside from what we've done. We decided at the end of last year, we had a couple of continental bulls when we were bulling our autumn herd, and we decided we got rid of them and got a couple more stabiliser bulls in. So everything that's calving just now is to the stabiliser, and that's just for ease of management. We've got stock bulls which are bulling 50 cows, and they're bulling 50 cows in 12 weeks. We had a stock bull with 40 heifers, and he bulled all of them in 6 weeks. What we're getting out of the bulls, because they're more mobile, because they're lighter on their feet, because their feet are better, because they haven't been pumped full of grain all through their life, we're getting an animal that's fertile and covering a lot of cows. From the experience that I've had in investing in stabiliser cattle, I'd be surprised if you ever regretted doing it. For me, it's been a great move, and I'm sure that it will be for you as well if you make that step.
The Stabiliser breed started in the 70s at the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture Meat Research Center in Nebraska. They set out to try and find the most efficient breed of cattle by combining different breeds to end up with an animal that is the most efficient. When they looked at the different breeds, they split them up into 2 categories. There were the native breeds, which are known for good mothering, the ability to outwinter, as well as using resource, as well as the continental breeds, which were good for performance, growth rate, and carcass characteristics. It was the combination of putting the native breeds with the continental breeds that they ended up with a composite breed. And the benefit that happens with a composite breed is the offspring are better than both of the individual parents. It's a case of 1 + 1 = 3. The most efficient was a 50% native genetics, 50% continental genetics. And it was the Mark II, and they dubbed that the Stabiliser. When the research finished by the USDA, Leachman Cattle Company, they bought the herd and they continued to work on the development of the breed. In the late 90s, there was a group of forward-thinking farmers that wanted to develop an ultimate suckler cow for UK conditions. They looked around the world, they found the research that USDA had done, they found the Leachman Cattle Company of Colorado, and they went over, they saw the cows, they saw the animals, and they discovered that they'd found the ultimate suckler cow. Irrespective of whether an animal is up the top of the hill in Colorado or anywhere in America, or whether the top of the hills in North Wales or Scotland, whether they're on the moors in Yorkshire, the ability for the animal to be outside, survive, thrive, rear a young animal is exactly the same. So the genetics in the US and the UK are very, very similar.
The Stabiliser Cattle Company work with about 100 multipliers. With this, they are recording all the traits that we require and work very closely with us, telling us what they have and what's available, and we help them with breeding decisions on farm, try to help them do their planning and management of their breeding decisions and how they can use different genetics on their farm. The multipliers are the guys as well that use the embryos and implant embryos, and these are very important to us because this is bringing new genetics in from America, and this is keeping up the different bloodlines and the new bloodlines that Lee Leachman is using over in the States.
So historically we ran a herd of continental cross cows, and it was back in 2012 we started to realise the increased cost of feeding the cows. We were running into fertility problems, definitely temperament problems. So we thought if we were going to continue with the Suckler herd, we needed to change direction. And what we really wanted to do was to create a self-replacing herd to reduce the risk of buying in disease. So I think it was later in 2012, we went on a study tour up to Yorkshire with a Rob Blaine-Book's study trip. And we called in and visited a Stabiliser breeder, very impressed with what we saw. So later that year, contacted Ursula, the Stabiliser company, and asked her if she could source us a bull and some breeding heifers. So Ursula did all the legwork and found us a bull in Cumbria, which we went to see, and later 10 bulling heifers from Cirencester. So that got us on the road to starting our herd. So I think one of the big issues that drove us to invest in the Stabilisers, we wanted to, as I say, wanted to create a self-replacing herd to stop any disease coming onto the farm or reduce the risk. We wanted a smaller, hardier cow because we decided the wintering costs are quite high indoors, and we were quite interested in trying fodder beat, placing the bales and outwintering them. So like a 650 kilo cow outwintered that's hardy. Fertility is probably the main driver in a Suckler herd, and Stabiliser herd have got sort of spadefuls of fertility, so that was a big attraction. I think the calves being born small, thrifty up on their feet, and not having to suckle big, heavy bull calves are a bit dopey. That was a big attraction, and the thought of possibly the ease of calving, meaning we didn't have to get up in the night, was also a big attraction. I think some of the practical differences we've seen have been definitely in temperament. We farm across a few separate blocks of land, so that does mean shuffling cattle about through the year, and the handling of them being docile is a massive difference. They're quite a pleasure to handle. And if you move on to calving, the ease of calving, the fact the calves are up on their feet and sucking, probably the majority of our cows calve outside, and the only interaction with the calves then is they're born soon after birth, they're tagged. So we really do enjoy the fact that all the calves are born polled, and that was a job I never really enjoyed dehorning, so that's one less job ticked off the list. So another advantage we find here with the herd is getting the calves to achieve 50% of the mum's body weight at weaning. It, really does help your bottom line. So when we first decided to move across to Stabilisers, the intention was not to become a multiplier. We just bought into the high health scheme right from the start to improve our own herd. And as the years progressed and we used AI to get good genetics on the farm, we found ourselves in a place that we were able to sell stock with confidence. So it really was a very easy and natural progression to actually become a multiplier. And I really have enjoyed farmers coming to visit to look at the stock, selling some bulling heifers, some in-calf heifers and some breeding bulls. Not everybody buys, but it's still nice to show off the herd and they might come back another day. So honestly, my only regret regarding the Stabiliser is the fact I didn't do it 10 years earlier.
The reason that we've progressed and we've accelerated performance so quickly is that all of our breeding decisions are based on data. We've got one of the biggest databases used by any breed society within the UK, and the decisions that we make are not about phenotypic, how that animal looks, whether it's got big ears, but it's on about the performance of that animal itself. We collect data on every single animal that is in our database. We have over 12,000 animals recorded every year. We get performance data from calving ease, growth rate, carcass conformation, as well as innovative and different measures like feed efficiency and carbon. All of the data comes together, and it's a very complicated system, but it gives you the ability to choose an animal on performance. You'd never go and buy a car and just look at the colour and what the wing mirrors look like. You want to know how fast it goes, what its fuel efficiency is. With cattle, it's exactly the same. We can deliver animals that not only survive in the conditions that we need it to, but thrive and perform. They will outperform any other animal because the data behind them is so strong and reliable. Going forward, there's probably going to be some sort of payment for your carbon credentials. We are the only breed that has got the figures to show that with the right genetics and management practices, there can be a saving of 40% in the carbon footprint of those animals.
The marbling in the meat and the taste of the meat is really good. So we have confidence that what we're producing is really good for consumer. The grades on the bulls, 3/4 of them were a U grade, with the remainder being R.
Hi, my name's Jono. I am head tutor and resident chef at the Yorkshire World School of Cookery. I've been cooking professionally for 19 years, mostly in the ski industry, but also in restaurants in London and in Warwickshire. And I've sold a lot of beef, I've cooked a lot of beef, and I've eaten a lot of beef. And I'm here to talk to you about Stabiliser beef and steaks. When I'm choosing a steak to eat or to sell, there are three main things that I'm looking for in terms of quality, how the steak is going to taste and how it's going to cook. And this Stabiliser steak has got a really good balance of all three. The first thing I'm looking for is water content, and I normally go for how the steak feels. It doesn't feel wet to the touch. It doesn't feel too dry, which means it might have been hung for too long. This is just right. It doesn't feel dry, it doesn't feel too wet. If it's too red, that means it might shrink an awful lot when I cook it, which means I can't sell it for as much. I'm also looking for this darkness to show that it has been hung for the appropriate time. And the most important thing is how much fat is in the steak and where it is. These areas of fat, they will dissolve in the pan and give me juices to baste the outside of the steak. And that means that they will caramelize on the surface and give more flavor. More importantly, this milky white marbling means that the fat is running through the muscle as well. This will dissolve in the pan, and that will give a really nice juiciness to the inside of the steak as well, which is less cooked than the outside. So this Stabiliser steak, really good balance of water content, fat content, and I absolutely love the color as well. Great, so after a really fun afternoon cooking all the Stabiliser beef, as you can see, it hasn't dried out. Nice juicy beef on the joint, on the steak as well. We've had a fantastic day, and you're gonna have to trust me that it tastes really good as well.
If you're interested in the breed, don't be shy, pick up the phone, give us a call. Whatever breed you have, we can put you in touch with the right people, with the right stock, and we can help you.